nonstop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
Football.
And it's not just Purple Daily. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Purple Access. A day earlier than usual, Judd Zolgad, Star Tribune sports columnist, and my good friend Chip Scoggins, executive producer Declan Goff, sponsored by our friends. And by our friends, I mean in particular Judd and Chip, although Declan loves it too at Surly Brewing. Because I know, but I mean, Chipper and I, furious guys through and through. Nothing better than a furious.
I needed a furious or two late last night after getting home from the Wild.
Oh, well,
but that's another topic altogether.
I don't blame you one bit. And of course, also sponsored by the TV that if you didn't go to the game and watched it at home, I hope you did watch it on a TCL TV, because that's the best way to enjoy your favorite shows, including sports. TCL television. All right, Chip Scoggins, I have for you in my hand, and Dex will laugh and mock this, but it's an old school notepad. It's a reporter's notebook. And on it, I have written this: post-draft Viking storylines not involving Kirk Cousins. Yeah, there. Oh, showing that. There. Declan, look at that. Look at that. Look at what Chip's got. That's a true reporter's notebook.
The notes.
This is a sports writer's a staple. You have to have one of these in your back pocket at all times.
No. You know what? I don't have a problem with that, Chipper. It's the fact that PR teams, I think, are the only individuals that use more paper than Judd Zolgad. Judd's printing out stuff every day. Just no one wastes more paper than public relations teams and Judd.
There's nothing more aggravating than wanting a media guide and saying, it's online. I don't want it online. I want it in my hand. I want a media guide in my hand.
Exactly. To a degree, I'd agree.
There you go. I know. Right. I know. I still love media guides.
You know what? There's plenty of trees. There's plenty of trees. Okay? So if we need to have a few trees die for Chip Scoggins and Judd Zolgad to have note paper to take notes on, you know what? Don't complain to us. Too bad. Okay. Post-draft Viking storylines not involving Kirk Cousins. I'm going to throw 5 post-draft storylines at you now that I think we can agree that the roster is pretty well set now. And so this team has taken shape, and I want your thoughts, and then obviously we can also go back and forth. My top one is this. It's a curiosity that I think might be great fun, but I don't want us to get ahead of ourselves in expecting that it's going to be a slam dunk success. It could be. That is this one. In the 3-4 base defense, Chip, Za'Darius Smith's impact with a healthy Danielle Hunter, and keep in mind, Smith missed the majority of 2021 because of a back problem. Yep. Hunter missed all of 2020 and then 21 separate injuries. But just as far as the storyline goes, I am super curious to see what these two can do from a pass rush quarterback pressure standpoint in a different looking defense.
Yeah, and if we tend to think of these things in the best version of themselves, right? So if you take Za'Darius Smith and Danielle Hunter and they're healthy, you would say, man, they got one of the best pass rushing edge tandems in the league.
Right.
But it has to have an asterisk with it right now.
Right.
It just does because of the injury situation. And yes, Smith came back and played in the playoff game, right? So he was cleared and healthy enough to do that. But I do like the move that they made to go get him, and that was a splash move, right? I mean, yes, he had the injury, but that was a big time move that said, "Whoa!" Whoa, that's because you needed to pair someone with Danielle on the opposite side. You got to have two, so you're not just shifting everything towards Danielle's side. And so, it's kind of like when we talk about Byron Buxton. If they stay healthy, and I don't want to put Danielle all the way in Buxton's category because Buxton's always hurt. But Danielle, this is 2 years now that he's dealt with a pretty significant injury. And so, but when he came back from, the way he was playing early last year, this past season, there were no residual effects there. I mean, he was a force. And so I have to think that the way he keeps himself in shape and if he can just avoid injury, those two are going to make this defense markedly improved.
I agree. And what's interesting about this is if one or both get hurt, I don't know what the depth is. Like there are
Yeah.
guys back there, but they are literally just guys. So like it goes from this great anticipation of, oh my gosh, these two could be disruptors and really effective to it's not like there's a backup to one or both where you say, okay, if Smith goes out, that's unfortunate, but you've got, like we talk about guys and we're like, oh man, hopefully, but to me, the potential potential, I think is the fair word, is enormous.
Well, and that's what you go back to what Zimmer said with the top heavy roster. I don't think that's changed. And a lot of teams are that way. When you have a number of guys that are stars, your backups are largely unproven. And we saw last year what happened in the year before when you had to rely on backups. I mean, there is a big drop. And so, but it's not like you're going to have a high caliber guy right behind him that's, on a big contract because it's just not possible. So there is going to be a big drop off. But we've seen Smith. He can be a wrecker.
Here?
Yeah.
A couple years ago?
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
And so if you can get close to that version of him, and then in this new defense, and that to me, the other thing is just schematically, forget the health stuff, but just schematically, how does Danielle look in this system and kind of what? I mean, is it going to be dramatically different? What they're asking him to do? I don't think so, right?
Standing up, I think it will be. When they go to a 4-3, it probably won't be, right?
Yeah, and it's going to be a hybrid, a little bit of both, but still, it's going to be go rush the quarterback. I mean, that's what he does. That's his thing, and so I don't think they're going to get too cute and have him doing all kinds of weird things.
I'm very curious on that because he's such a freak. If he is healthy athletically, he is a complete freak.
Yeah,
I don't think they'd ask him to do too much, but I think they might ask him to do a little bit more than was previously asked. And like if occasionally you zone blitzed and I would not, I'm not saying this consistently, but occasionally he dropped. I mean, he could pick off a pass for sure. Like he's that good. He's that good.
Remember we used to ask Jared Allen about dropping in zone blitz?
Oh God. Yes.
He did not like it.
He did not. Although didn't he have the pick for a touchdown against the Rams in St. Louis?
Yeah.
So I mean, he, but
you're right. As a change up, Danielle is so athletic, and such a freak, skill wise that it he probably would like it. But at the end of the day, this guy's just, such a terrific pass rusher that now I think can you move him around and get him in different creative ways to rush the passer? That's what I think we're going to see.
The one thing I've always been curious about, and I don't know if this scheme would lend itself to this or not, but that day against the Saints in the Superdome in the playoff game, when he and Griffin shifted inside, I was always surprised we didn't see that come back the next season because I just think, so with Jared, Chipper, I think Jared was really good at what Jared did. I think he rushed the quarterback, but I mean, I don't think he was an athletic freak. I just think he was really good at that skill set. With Danielle, I don't know. Like I've seen things where I'm like, oh my God.
Well, think about how disruptive that wrinkle was. And, we all lauded Zimmer for it, but like the Saints had no answer for it. They were like, oh my gosh, they're inside now. And the pass rush just, clearly was effective. And so that's where I think this staff, Donatell, because it's a new scheme and different things, standing up, that you will be able to maximize that this guy is a freak athlete. And I think he's a quick learner too. I mean, we've seen it because remember, you think about when he came out of college.
I agree.
What do you have, like 2 sacks or whatever it was? I mean, he wasn't a finished product by any stretch.
I agree.
But he learned. I think he's a fast learner, and I think he can pick up things.
He's a guy who 1,000% does not show us himself at all. Like he's boring. He keeps it just,
quiet,
football, quiet. I don't think he's dumb at all. I think.
No.
I think he's very intelligent, and he doesn't want us to know him. So, which is fine. But there's a big difference between that guy's just a dummy and no, that guy's really smart. And I think this guy is football smart for sure.
And you would hear that too from whether it's Andre Patterson or Zimmer that I mean, he's studying a lot. He's, he picks up the game quick, things they asked him to do. So I don't have any doubt that wherever they put him, he's going to be productive, and whatever they ask him to do, he's going to be productive. It's just, to me, it's just the biggest thing is, can he stay healthy?
Post-draft Vikings storyline number 2, Chip Scoggins, switching to the offensive side of the football. The line, and in particular, the plan at center. Because it sounds like Bradbury, who didn't have his 5th-year option picked up, but is coming back as the starter as of right now, is going to get competition from Chris Reed, who was signed as a free agent from the Colts. And we thought that he was going to play right guard, but they drafted Ingram, who will compete at right guard. And Chris Reed, it sounds like, is going to get reps to compete at center. That, to me, the center position, and the guard is very important too, but the center position, to me, I am so curious to see how this potential last year of Garrett Bradbury plays out.
Yeah, and it's still a weakness, right?
Yeah.
They haven't addressed it, and I don't think a change in scheme, a change in blocking philosophy, all that, I don't think you're going to change who the player is. I just don't, because the areas where he struggled, point of the attack, big, strong nose tackles, kind of shoving them into Kirk Cousins' face. How do you scheme that out? I mean, how do you? So, maybe Reed. I just don't know enough about Reed, to be honest with you. Maybe
I'm not comfortable too. Just to be clear, I'm not comfortable here. When you're trying to give Kirk, and they clearly are, they're trying to give Kirk everything that they can. And I like the tackles. I like Cleveland. The right guard might be fine. Don't know. The center makes me very nervous.
Yeah, and I would say right guard too, because that's as much of a known right now. I mean, we don't. So you have 2 areas where you don't right up the gut, and we've seen Cousins when it comes right, when they push him back, and most quarterbacks, he just doesn't react well to that. And so I'm surprised that they didn't address that in a more meaningful way than they have.
Agreed.
With Reed. Just say we're going to bring in Reed, who might be able to beat him out. Well, if you're, and I think I mentioned this, if you're not going to give Bradbury that 5th-year option, means you don't really trust him, right? He's not your guy. Well, then, if he's not your guy next year, is he going to be your guy this? You know what I'm saying? It's like I don't understand why they didn't make it more meaningful. And maybe they still will. Maybe there's a tweak coming, a camp cut. But is that going to be a dramatic upgrade? Whoever they get that gets cut somewhere, I don't know.
I would just like to see somebody that you trust more. Like that. Yeah. That's my thing. Can you find someone who you? It seems so odd to me to give Kirk, hey, we're going to get Kirk this, so we're going to do that, and like Cousins is, I think, set up to succeed, no question. But to your point, then it's like, yeah, but we're going to have this interior pressure still. Like that's not just, that's fine. That's a huge part of Kirk's game is if that pressure is in Kirk's face, there's a lot of quarterbacks who fail. And
it's not like, this was a 1-game thing or 2-game thing where this is a recurring theme where we've seen it time and time again where you just know when he's facing these certain nose tackles which seems like everybody has now, one of these massive, strong, nose tackles that are going to try to rush the passer. Everybody's getting those guys now. And so I think we've heard Kwesi or Kevin O'Connell talk about anchoring, they want their offensive lines. You just see Bradbury get pushed back too often.
He can't anchor anything.
Yeah. And so it's, I don't know. I that would be, I say that was one of my surprises this offseason that they didn't do more to address that position.
All right, storyline post-draft from the Vikings, number 3. We talked about the front end of the defense. I want to talk about the back end. Lewis Cine, their first-round pick, in what I think are going to be multiple safety packages with Harrison Smith and Cam Bynum, probably Cam Bynum and Cine playing deep in coverage, and Smith being allowed to roam. I think on the back end, this could be extremely intriguing if Smith is basically completely turned loose here.
Yeah, and it's Now part of that is you have to trust Cine to be in the right spot if you're moving Harrison up and moving him around. That you got to trust your safety.
I think they're going to trust his skills a lot. I think they
I
really
do.
like his skills.
And the thing I like about him is, I mean, obviously the physical talent, but I mean, Judd, that defense at Georgia was historically great, and
Yes.
and they play Alabama, and they play great wide receivers and some great offenses. That now it's not the NFL. I'm not saying that, but he's played at a really high level, the highest level in college, and he's won a national title and played on a great defense. So he brings kind of that IQ and also a winner's mentality.
Correct.
So, and to me, I don't know what their base is going to be, but if they go to two safeties, does he get the nod over Cam Bynum? I mean, he's a first round pick that.
Yes.
I think he probably does.
I think he does.
Yes. I mean, as long as he comes as advertising, that there's not a steep learning curve. But I think in their mind, they're probably thinking, yeah, we want to pair him with Harrison Smith and let him learn from Harrison. And that's the other part of this. I don't think Harrison's like the most vocal leader, but we know he's incredibly smart and he loves to. I think he'll take Cine under his wing, and I think that guy's going to benefit so much from playing and being in the room and being around Harrison and just picking his brain and learning the game. I think it's going to be a good tandem, and it does free up Harrison if Cine can handle it. Donatell to be able to use Harrison creative just the way Zim did.
Mm-hmm. And I guess my question too is, because I think that defensively, I think these guys are going to, total guess here, but push the boundaries of what we consider to be positionless football.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to be 4 linebackers, they're linebackers.
Yeah.
And the one thing I'm curious about too, and if Cine develops, you could actually switch this. If you play 2 deep, which they're going to, you could put Bynum and Smith deep, because the one thing is, if you trust Cine, he's got instincts, he's young, and he can hit.
Yeah.
So one of those two between Smith and Cine, Chipper, in the 3-4 could be a linebacker basically. So Kendricks, Za'Darius Smith, Danielle Hunter, and a safety substituting for a linebacker, which would constitute a dime package.
Yeah.
6 defensive backs, but it would be 3-3 with the corners and safeties.
And I believe Georgia moved Cine around a lot. I think he played in the slot some. I think he played kind of a hybrid linebacker role.
He can hit like a linebacker,
which tells you
he hits.
Yeah, which tells you he's got some real football savvy to him too. That
Yes.
And just I don't know if you listen to any of his introductory press conferences. Man, is he sharp? He's got he seems kind of like an old soul. Some of the way he views stuff and
he's going to crush some people too.
Yeah, well,
I think he watches Jack Tatum highlights.
Yeah, that he has to. That part he has to learn. I mean, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say he's probably gonna have to cut a check to the NFL at some point, or they're gonna take some money out of his paycheck sometime. But he'll figure that part of it out. I mean, Harrison did. He went through it. Anybody that comes in with that kind of big hitter mentality is going to have to figure out where that line is. And so, but what is it you always say? You'd rather have to dial him back than try to get him going.
No question about it. No. That's such a big thing. You have to. The bottom line is this: the sport. I mean, it's fun to watch. I love it, but to play it probably sucks. You gotta love that. You've got. I mean, the majority of humans are probably, and this is no indictment because I'm included, are probably not wired to have any enjoyment in what that sport brings you, right?
Yeah.
So Harrison Smith, Cine, when you're playing like those guys are, that's not normal. And so I think you're probably right. You'd much prefer to say, Lewis, we got to dial you back, as opposed to, hey, do you want to try harder this week?
Yeah, so, let's get going. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
All right, post-draft storyline number 4 from the Vikings, and keep in mind these do not include Kirk, because just for 1 week we're not going to talk about Kirk Cousins. The 4th storyline is this one, and it's going to begin to play itself out when OTAs start. And it's not the 2022 draft class, Chip Scoggins.
Uh-oh.
It's the 2021 draft class.
Yeah.
I think this is a huge storyline. I think in some ways you have essentially 2 draft classes filled with players, not for the most part named Christian Darrisaw, probably. But, you think about the unknowns, and I'm guessing they're not going to punt on that class and be like, these guys were Spielman's guys. So I am so curious to see what you potentially have here with maybe hidden gems who were stored away by Mike because he didn't want to play them last year.
So you're not giving up on Wyatt Davis yet, huh?
I'm not giving up on Wyatt Davis, but I mean, you think about that draft class.
Yeah, it is. It's
Smith Marset, right?
Defensively.
Kane was never used right.
No,
they literally had him run up the bleeping gap.
I know.
Hey,
yeah. It was almost like college where they said, okay, we're going to redshirt you guys.
Yeah.
Like their whole draft class took a redshirt year. Not the whole, but no, and it's interesting. And I can't remember what press conference I was there at. And O'Connell was basically saying that it's like, this is all evaluation period because you don't really have a book on any of these guys or many of them that I guess you could watch their practice film, but what, they're in a scout team. What's that going to tell you? And
you're not working with them.
And you're not working with them. They're not in your system. They're not, under anything. So you don't want to.
Kellen Mond play. I have no clue.
Well, that's what O'Connell said too. He's like, he evaluated him coming out of college when they were looking at all the quarterbacks, but it's like, okay, that's not really a final edict on whether you want to be part of your program or not. And so, that's why this OTA mini camp and training camp. I mean, a lot of these guys are just, anytime you have a new regime and new coaches, you have to prove yourself again. They didn't draft you, so that they didn't. It wasn't like we're drafting this guy because we like him. It's like they inherited you, so you need to show that you belong here. That you fit with what they do. So yeah, it is basically 2 classes of rookies.
Absolutely.
Essentially, trying to show that they fit.
Who intrigues you the most? Who are you curious to see get a shot?
And not that he's going to be. I mean, I'm curious to see what they do with Kellerman, right? I mean,
oh yeah, yes.
Whether they just say, he's not our guy. Not that he's going to replace Cousin or anything like that, or even I wouldn't even suspect that he would be the post Cousins. I think they're going to find their own guy that you're not going to inherit a quarterback, probably, most likely. But would they view him as a backup long term? Could he fit that mold, or they just say, you know what, can't play, not part of, wouldn't fit our system, doesn't, and then they move on. So I would say him, and I keep going back to, I'm stuck on Wyatt Davis for some reason. I mean, he's a 3rd round pick.
Because I don't
for $1 million. I just whatever happened. I mean,
I know
this is not like a 7th round flyer. This was a 3rd round pick at Ohio State, who, obviously wrongly we all thought was going to we penciled him in as a starter because they had such a hole there at guard, and the fact that they cycled through so many guards, and he wasn't even close to being an option for him apparently.
Correct.
And then they drafted guard.
I know.
So it was like, was this just a whiff by Spielman?
Well, I
don't know.
I think he came into the off-season camps overweight. But again, he's a lineman. Kids get fat sometimes. Like your job is not to be like, you're a 3rd round pick, screw you. Yeah. And I think there were maturity, there were a few things, but again, he's a kid. Like you know what? If he was an undrafted free agent and screwed around, see you later. You're cut.
Yeah.
But this is to your point, a 3rd round pick who you're just like, well, screw you.
Yeah,
I'm with you. Just bizarre.
And I'm baffled by it. So I'm curious to see if they, where in the rotation he is in OTAs. Is he the 5th or 6th guy in there? And you're like, well, they just moved on from him. I don't know. I just don't know enough about, where he's at.
The entire third round of 21, Chip, is really intriguing now. Because
Yeah,
don't forget, there were 3 guys, all of whom basically didn't play much, okay?
Yeah.
Chaz Surratt, linebacker, former quarterback, North Carolina. I'm
Mhm.
very curious about because he's an
Yeah.
athlete, so
Good
clearly
athlete,
there's something there. And he was taken with the 78th pick in the third round. Davis, to your point, was the 86th pick in the third round. And then I think the guy that I'm most curious about, who we didn't see much, and I heard in the camps was actually good, the 90th pick, Patrick Jones II, a defensive end from Pittsburgh. And my question is, can he be a linebacker in a 3-4 to be behind Smith or Hunter?
Well,
Because
yeah.
I heard I heard he impressed, and then I basically didn't see him.
Yeah, I mean, I remember talking to you at training camp last year that this guy was kind of flashing a little bit. But that's the other part of this, Judd, too, is all those guys were drafted for a totally different system.
Correct.
And so you have to figure out, does their skill set, body type, whatever you're looking for, does it translate to what they want to do? Some of them that you may just look at and say, it doesn't fit. I mean, he's a traditional 4-3 rush in, whatever. He's not going to fit with it. So, and then you may make that determination. That's no fault of anyone. It's just you were drafted for something totally different, right? And so there may be some of those along the ways. But yeah, I mean, there's probably a handful of these guys where you're thinking, they didn't get a shot. Maybe they'll get, proved to be something with this regime.
Post-draft Vikings storylines, not involving Kirk Cousins, the 5th one. But before we get to it, I want to tell you it's sponsored by our friends at Surly Brewing. Chip Scoggins, the weekend is approaching. You are going to have to make a choice when it comes to what beverage, what beer you will be enjoying. Can you tell us what you will be going to pick up at your local liquor store?
Well, normally I just get the 1 4-pack of Surly Furious. I like the tall ones. I'm the tall boy kind.
I agree with you, actually. I love the
as the kids say, it just hits different, right? When they're in the tall boys.
is that the you got to get on the top?
Is that the phrase?
Yeah, that's what the kids say. As far as
I'm
I'm
young
concerned,
kid.
that's what
You got kids.
tall boys.
Yeah, you got kids.
the kids get your roll on.
I'm going to get 2 packs of the tall boys.
Oh,
and I'm joining TikTok. Judd's trying to get me on TikTok. All the kids love Judd. I know.
You got to get on the talk. You got to join me on the talk. And I'm telling you, I'm trying to get the kids to understand that Surly Beer is your friend and a fabulous choice. A fabulous choice. All right, Chip Scoggins, the 5th storyline, I saved the best for last. And it's one that I'm curious about. I think it's going to work spectacularly, but I'm really excited to see exactly how it pans out. And that is on offense, Justin Jefferson in the role of playing Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be, well, 1, I think it's going to work great. But 2, to your point, and it's a great point, I think we're conditioned now to think of the Vikings as they operated with Spielman and Mike, right? And so it's like, well, Thielen's still important. He's really good. But Justin Jefferson in the Cooper Kupp role means there's going to be 1 star here, and it's going to be JJ. And Cooper Kupp, God bless him, has turned himself into a great player. I will say this: he's not Justin Jefferson, so this ups the ante to me a little bit.
Well, it's interesting too because Jefferson's already put up historic numbers.
I know,
right?
and I'm not, yeah.
And you think we haven't even seen the ceiling yet? I mean, obviously because he's been in just 2 years in his career, but yeah, I think if you're Kevin O'Connell, you're thinking, man, I get to work with this guy. With my offense and what I want to do. And I'm sure that's why Jefferson's like, I think he had a press conference. He's like, I'm ready for the season start. I bet he is. I mean, he knows he's going to get a lot of targets thrown. Put it this way. I don't think we're going to be criticizing. Remember last year when we counted up his targets, there was like a couple games where he had 2 or 3. He's like, come on.
The Detroit game here, he had 7 catches, was off to a great start. They then played too high, and the Vikings are like, well, we can't throw to him now.
Yeah, he's double. Can't do it. No, it's like, no.
That's not going to happen now.
No.
Because this is going to draw out the defenses. That's what you do here.
And it's probably wrong or dangerous to say this is his offense or that offense, but I just think so much of it in the past was it starts with Dalvin, and then
Right.
This is
Yes.
Jefferson's offense. You know,
Yes.
I mean, he is the focal point, the number one, the superstar, and then everything kind of feeds off of that, right? And so, I would say he's going to put up gigantic numbers this year.
I agree completely. All right, sir. Great stuff. Talk to you for a little bit more Purple Access next week. Thanks, Chipper.
All right, brother. We'll see you.